Hey, lovely, let's talk about this. Because I think a lot of foster carers have spent many years believing that staying small actually keeps them safe. Safe from conflict, safe from criticism, safe from being misunderstood, safe from being seen as difficult. So they often soften everything. They over explain, they over accommodate, and they avoid saying what they really think. They apologize constantly. They stay quiet in rooms where they should probably speak up. And after a while, that way of surviving just becomes normal. So, by the end of this episode, I really want us to explore something honestly. What if playing small isn't actually protecting you at all? What if it's slowly exhausting you instead? Because the truth is that many foster carers are carrying enormous emotional responsibility while simultaneously trying not to inconvenience everybody around them. And those two things, well, they do eventually clash. Because fostering asks a lot from people emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, the four core pillars of life are always being affected. You keep trying to carry all of that while shrinking yourself at the same time. You eventually disappear underneath the weight of it all. And I think for many carers, playing small just started out as a bit of protection. Maybe you learned early that speaking on kind of creates a bit of tension. Maybe advocating strongly got you labelled as difficult, or maybe you were made to feel emotional for even having boundaries. Maybe your concerns were dismissed, or maybe you stopped trusting your own voice because too many people began to question it. So eventually, over time, you've adapted, you've become easier, you've become quieter, you've become more accommodating to others and less visible. But the hard part is that adaptation can look healthy on the outside. People might describe you as calm and easygoing, so flexible and great to work with. You're really low maintenance. But internally, you are exhausted because there's a difference between being peaceful and abandoning yourself to keep the peace. And I think for a lot of foster carers, they live inside of that tension. You don't want conflict, you don't want drama, you don't want to appear as being ungrateful. So instead of expressing anything that you may need, you just learn to suppress it. You carry things silently and you absorb the pressure quietly. You begin to minimize your own emotions, and eventually you just stop recognizing that when something genuinely isn't okay anymore. But here's something that I really want you to understand. Playing small might reduce the external conflict, but only temporarily. But internally, it creates another kind of conflict. The conflict of constantly betraying yourself, and that becomes emotionally draining over time. Because every time that you ignore your instincts, every time you silence your boundaries, every time that you downplay your exhaustion, you teach yourself that your needs are less important than everybody else's comfort. And honestly, that is not sustainable fostering. Galatians 5:1 reminds us, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. And when I read that scripture, I don't just think about the obvious bondage, but I think about it, the emotional patterns too. The patterns that quietly keep people trapped. Fear, silence, people pleasing, over accommodating, constant self diminishing. Because some foster carers are physically present in their homes, but emotionally, they've clocked off, they've disappeared. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions around boundaries is that boundaries make people less caring. But healthy boundaries are often what allow carers to remain compassionate for the long term. Because boundaries protect our sustainability, they protect our emotional capacity, they protect our identity, and they protect peace within the home. And honestly, some carers are so used to just functioning in survival mode, they don't even realize how much pressure they're carrying anymore. It's just become so normal. You're constantly adapting, absorbing, and managing everybody else emotionally without ever asking, what is this actually costing me? And I think this is where the conversation gets really important. Because sustainable fostering cannot be built on self abandonment. You cannot pour endlessly from a version of yourself that no longer exists. And this doesn't mean becoming hard. It doesn't mean becoming selfish. And it doesn't mean becoming difficult. It simply means recognizing that your well-being matters too. Your voice matters. Your instincts matter. Your limits, your capacity, they all matters. And honestly, I think some carers need permission to stop apologizing for even being human. Because somewhere along the way, a lot of carers have started believing that if I was stronger, this wouldn't affect me. If I was better at this, I wouldn't feel so overwhelmed. If I was really called to fostering, I wouldn't need boundaries. But let's face it, that's not wisdom, and that is not sustainable. Even Jesus, he withdrew. Jesus rested, and Jesus stepped away from the crowds. And yet many carers feel guilty for needing space to breathe. So let me say this to you clearly today. You do not need to disappear to prove that you care. And shrinking yourself will not protect you from burnout. It will not protect you from exhaustion. It will not protect you from resentment. If anything, it will slowly move you closer to those things. Because the carers who last long term, they're not usually the carers who sacrifice themselves completely. They are often the carers who learn how to remain present within their own lives while still caring deeply for others. And I think that is the shift that this series has really been building you towards. Not arrogance, not hardness, not self-importance, but true, grounded presence. The ability to say that I can care deeply without disappearing. I can stay compassionate without abandoning myself. And I can hold boundaries and still be loving. I can take up appropriate space in my own life. And honestly, that kind of emotional steadiness probably protects foster homes far more than people realize. So if you've been listening to this series and recognizing yourself in these conversations, I just want you to sit with this final thought. What if the healthiest version of you is not the smallest version? What if sustainable fostering actually requires you to stay connected to yourself instead of constantly shrinking to just survive? Because honestly, your voice does matter. Your well-being matters. Your presence matters. And the people around you, they need a version of you that is emotionally present, not emotionally disappearing. And if this series has resonated with you, I'd really encourage you to continue these conversations with us inside the Fostering Kingdoms community membership. Because these are the conversations that many carers are carrying quietly, and you are never meant to carry them alone. But for now, just sit with this. Playing small doesn't protect you. It only disconnects you from yourself. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with a fellow foster carer. But if you're not ready to say goodbye yet, don't worry, we can hang out some more. And I'll catch you on the next episode.